Hi, I'm Duncan Gregson. I was the ex-CEO of Air Energi, an international recruitment business. I basically, during the 10 years I was involved in the business, completed 4 private equity transactions. We grew the business over 10 years, from an EBITDA of about 1 million to 14 million. And through that 10-year period, we completed 3 private equity transactions, starting off in 1999, bringing Palatine Private Equity on board as a minority investor. And then we rolled again with private equity 3 years later and brought in LGV. And then 5 years after that, we actually completed a merger which involved bolting on a company the same size as ours, which also had a private equity owner. So we ended up with 2 private equity owners, one in the US and one in the UK. At that stage, I left the business and I'm now concentrating on non-executive director appointments and consultancy appointments, hoping to bring the benefits of my experience of going through private equity transactions to multiple businesses. At the time that we entered into our first kind of private equity transaction, there were a number of aspirations of stakeholders that we needed to meet. One was we had some legacy shareholders that wanted to exit and retire the retirement age. We had a business that was continuing to grow and we saw continued strong growth going forward. So the continuing shareholders wanted to remain part of that and benefit from that value enhancement journey, but also wanted to take the opportunity to take some value off the table. They'd set up the business 15 years previously and grown it and wanted to just take some of that value off at that stage, but then carry on for the longer term. And I guess the third thing was to try and expand the shareholder base beyond the original kind of 4 founders. So we sat down with a corporate finance advisor and looked at all the options possible to achieve those kind of aspirations. And it came down to a combination of one or the other of debt and private equity. Unfortunately, at the time that we were doing this, the banking crash happened right in the middle of it. So suddenly one of the options disappeared completely, the debt side. So we progressed with the private equity route instead and brought in Palatine Private Equity as a minority investor. In terms of learnings from the 3-4 processes that I've been through, I think the prime one is making sure you invest in resources and support as early as possible. It's a massive drain on the business going through these sorts of transactions, so I would really invest as much as possible in additional resource, particularly in finance, as early as possible, so to make sure you're prepared. The second bit of advice would be more to do with the follow-on transaction. I mean, we went through 2 follow-on private equity deals, and for the first transaction, you build up a data room, and the tendency is that data room's just there for the first transaction, and you never look at it again until the next transaction. If I was to go back again, I'd basically maintain that data room on an ongoing basis, so you're always ready for a transaction, because you never know, a surprise buyer, surprise investor might come along, and you want to be as prepared as possible for that.